good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar. You're all warmly welcome. Good afternoon. I see that colleagues are joining, which is great. And so we're just about to kickstart this webinar and this conversation and interaction. So once again, good afternoon. I'm the moderator for today's webinar. My name is Charles Kojo Van Dyke, and I work at the West Africa Civil Society Institute. So thank you so much for joining us for today's engagement. And the engagement is themed Beyond Grants, Rethinking How We Fund Civil Society in Ghana. This particular session is organized by the Ghana Civil Society Forum and coordinated by the Civil Society Sustainability Working Group as part of a broader commitment to strengthen or to help strengthen the resilience and sustainability of our organizations in Ghana. But before we get into the webinar itself, I just want to share some simple rules of engagement so that we can make this session very smooth and very productive for all of us. So I'll ask that you kindly mute your microphone when you are not speaking to avoid the background noise. I'll also ask that if you wish to ask a question or contribute, please use the raise the hand feature. When you go to the bottom of the Zoom, you'll see it there, or type your question in the chat box. I'll ask that because we are quite a significant number on this call, if we can ask questions that are very concise, try to be extremely relevant and aligned to the conversation today so that we can get many of us to participate actively and get something out of today's session. We also encourage that you stay present and active, please. We want active participation, please. So come out there and contribute and interact and ask all the questions you can possibly, because we want to make this a very practical learning space. At this juncture, I'll ask that we want to know where you are joining from. So your name, your affiliation, where you are joining from inside Ghana or even outside Ghana, you're all welcome. So your name, your affiliation, and where you are joining from. We all want to know who you are so that we can connect and interact on this call. So let me get into the actual structure for the session today before I introduce our resource person. So today's session will be delivered in two parts. And the reason we are doing that is that we want to make sure that there's practical takeaways that we can apply within our organization. So the first part, which is a 30-minute, sort of like a seminar presentation, our resource person will share his perspectives on the current realities of fundraising and resourcing in Ghana. And of course, he'll bring some expertise from outside Ghana to support his presentation. And he will also highlight on the urgent need for innovation and diversification in our funding models. This is a conversation that we've been having a lot these days. After that 30-minute presentation, there'll be a 20-minute contribution and Q&A session. We want to give you enough time to ask questions, to share your experiences, and also do some reflection, right? After that, we'll have a 15-minute case study discussion. So what is going to happen is that the resource person will walk us through a real-world case study, share some of his experiences from there and some practical strategies. And then there'll be a 15-minute Q&A session and contribution session where we'll also share our own perspectives of the case study and some of the lessons that we have also learned in our work, wherever we find ourselves, that align with the case study, right? So it's going to be a very interesting kind of conversation we are having today in those two parts. The two things that we try to achieve is that this session should be practical, it should be actionable, and it should be strategic, right? And we hope that we really achieve that today. So it gives me the honor at this juncture to welcome our distinguished guest. He's called Orwell Ahigbe, the co-founder and CEO of Travail Ensemble, a pioneering fundraising firm working to shift power in Francophone and Anglophone African nonprofits and social enterprises. Orwell is widely recognized for his practical expertise in building sustainable funding models through corporate partnerships, social enterprise strategies, and fundraising planning. He's also the creator of the acclaimed LinkedIn series, hashtag fundraise with Orwell. And I'll encourage all of us to follow it if you are on LinkedIn. And it's important, I think, if you are not on LinkedIn, to be on LinkedIn. Hashtag fundraise with Orwell, which has delivered 61 consecutive weekly episodes over the last 15 months, reaching over 8,000 subscribers and 66,000 nonprofit professionals. So you know that a lot of people are consuming some of the things that he's sharing. So in the wake of the 2025 funding crisis, he has become a leading voice in reimagining funding for African CSOs, and he's been sharing a lot of his experiences at conferences, at trainings, and as discussions like we're having today. He's actually an alumnus or alumni of the Nexford University, where he attained an MBA in international business, and then the University of Ibadan, where he has the master's degree in peace and conflict studies. So he has a strong academic background, and he also has a lot of practical experience, right? So, how are we framing the conversation today? And I think this is important so that we all know how we are coming to today's conversation. Today, we're going to explore three very important questions. What does the Ghanaian CSO fundraising landscape look like in 2025, right now? How is our fundraising landscape looking like? Why are grants from Western government donors and UN agencies becoming less reliable, right? Why is that happening? And what alternative funding models should Ghanaian CSOs be adopting right now? And how can they get started effectively? How can we kickstart some of these things? So I believe that this is an opportunity for us all to move beyond theory and to try to engage with some of the real world practical things that Orwell is going to share with us to strengthen our own sector or our own ecosystem in Ghana. So please join me in warmly welcoming our speaker, Orwell Ahigbe, as he leads us in this important conversation. Orwell, you are welcome, and I hope everything is lovely in Abuja.
Thank you so much, Charles. I'm really, really excited to be here with you and members of the Ghana Civil Society Forum. I don't take this honor lightly. It's a pleasure to be here. Really looking forward to supporting you and every other person on the call, really, to transition towards alternative funding models. So thank you for this opportunity. And Abuja is really cool right now. All the love from Nigeria.
Excellent, excellent. So, Orwell, kindly go ahead and share your perspectives. Thank you. Welcome.
So thank you so much once again. Really happy to be having this conversation where we're looking at beyond grants. How do we rethink the funding of civil society in Ghana? And this conversation is very apt. I have been a big fan of the work that Ghana Civil Society Forum is doing. And it's just great that this conversation follows on and builds on the third edition of the Ghana Civil Society Forum that you had in June, and all of the great conversations around how to reimagine development financing and those takeaways that were very helpful. I enjoyed streaming it actually all the way from Abuja on Facebook Live. So thank you, Star Ghana, for making that available And I just hope that I can share a bit more insights on how we can really get up and running practically on these alternative funding models. So just like Charles said at the very beginning, we're looking at three critical questions here. And those questions have formed what I identify as the outcomes that I want you to take out of this training. I know that we have been in a lot of conversations since January. A lot of people are trying to make sense of this significant change in the funding landscape and what this means for their work. So I have been privileged to be a speaker in conversations across East, Central, and Southern Africa around how can we make sense of what is happening. So a lot of things have been said. I am sure I will not share things that are probably totally new to you, but my intention is to really see how I can get you up and running on putting these things into practice in a very, in a way that gets you and your organization towards forward on the path of financial sustainability. So in relation to those three questions that Charles identified at the very beginning, the expectations that I have, that I hope that you will take out of this training is first, I want you to understand why your Ghanaian CSO should move beyond grants to embrace alternative funding models in 2025, not in 2024, not in 2020 during COVID, but right now, what is happening right now that makes this the opportune time for you to get started on diversifying your income. The second thing I want you to take out of this is I want you to know how to take advantage of various alternative funding models that you can use to resource your Ghanaian CSO. So there are a number of ways in which you can reimagine your financing internally, in which you can set out to build a stronger financial foundation for yourself. So I want you to be aware of these approaches. In my own experience, in trainings and with one-on-one work with clients, I usually advise that we should not fall into the trap that brought us to this point in time originally. So what I think led to this point is African NGOs threw put all their eggs in very few baskets of what was working in terms of funding the African CSOs ecosystem over the last 40 years. And then we became too reliant on it. So even now that I encourage organizations to diversify their funding, I always emphasize that there should be a mixture of these alternative funding models. So even when these models start working for you, don't rely on just one. Make sure that your organization is combining a couple of them to diversify your portfolio. And so you don't end up running into problems in the next couple of years again. The final thing that I want you to take out of this is what Charles shared earlier. We have put together a practical case study on how you can implement one of the alternative funding models. So what I want you to take out of this session today, particularly from that case study, are actionable insights that you can use to get started immediately on what the next steps look like for you and your organization. So thank you for the very robust introduction. Thank you so much, Charles. I lead a company called Travail Ensemble. We are an African fundraising consultancy, and we are serving both Francophone Africa and Anglophone Africa. And what we are trying to do in a nutshell, Travail Ensemble is a French phrase that means working together. And it's a promise we are making to organizations across the linguistic divide that we will work together with them, not in front of them, not behind them, but beside them, providing them with the skills, the expertise, the networks to scale their impact and mobilize more resources. So what we're doing right now is helping CSOs diversify their funding to ensure their financial sustainability. So at the moment, what we're really supporting organizations to do is help them accelerate corporate partnerships, form strong partnerships with businesses that are able to help them scale their impact. Then also design and implement high quality social enterprise models that helps them generate their own income so that they don't get to rely on any external donor. Then we're also supporting organizations in multi-year fundraising strategic planning, ensuring that they're able to work to have a good understanding of their internal capacity in terms of their strengths and weaknesses when it comes to fundraising, and understand the opportunities and threats that exist in the external landscape, after which they can take advantage of a very smart action plan to get towards their funding goals. And finally, we're helping our clients find new donors wherever they may be, and whether they are impact investors, local high net worth individuals, companies, foundations, etc., whether they are based in the US, across Europe, across the Middle East. And finally, we're supporting organizations to build really strong, solid relationships with various types of donors going forward. Now, this brings me to the conversation today and like the first outcome from that I want you to take out. So, like I said, I enjoyed streaming the third GCSF forum in June, and I learned a lot, yeah, from the submissions from Her Excellency the Vice President to government officials, to the Civicus leader that sent in some goodwill messages, to the conversations by Ghanaian private sector, public leaders, academics, NGO professionals. And one thing I heard from everybody was business cannot continue. We can't keep doing the business of NGO this way. Things have to change. Development has to come from within Ghana, from within the CSOs. It has to be aligned with community needs. And now is the time to do a turnaround, really. So that was very interesting for me. So I went on to try and figure out the Ghanaian CSO funding landscape. And then I came across Star Ghana's June 2025 study on the impact of USAID cuts on Ghanaian CSOs. So I think it's helpful for us to use that study as a benchmark to be able to understand where Ghanaian CSOs are right now, the importance of transitioning towards alternative funding models, and just really what the opportunity cost of not taking advantage of this time to transform your fundraising, what it could be if you don't take heed. So what that study found out was more than 58% of CSOs across Ghana were affected by USAID cuts. So the majority of those affected, came from the northern zone. And in terms of thematic areas, the thematic areas where CSOs are working on that were most affected, 74% of organizations affected were CSOs working in the healthcare sector. And then education came closely behind in terms of 72%. One statistic to bring out from this study is the fact that as much as 72% of CSOs, they lost 50% of their 2024 budgets, which is really terrible because this was January. People were just trying to get up to speed, trying to implement maybe their fundraising plans, their annual plans for their programs. And then suddenly they've lost more than half of what they used to deliver impact last year. And 72% of these lost up to 50% of their funding. And the scary part, and I guess this is the part from which we want to take out or we want to build on in this conversation today, is 91% of the affected CSOs, they do not have any other source of funding. So that is really scary because this means what happens to the mission that they were working on as at December? What happens to the people in the marginalized communities, or the marginalized groups in the local communities where they were working on? What happens to those issues that are still endemic, those people that are depending on the support and the expertise of local Ghanaian CSOs? What happens to that, to them? What happens to the issues we're trying to solve if 91% of those that are affected do not have any other options on how to finance their work? Or, of course, significant effects as a result of that. As at June, more than 320 staff had been were laid off from their jobs in Ghanaian CSOs. And on average, Ghanaian CSOs that were affected cut back on staffing between 30% to 50%. Now, that last part is something I want to emphasize because generally, globally, whether you're looking at NGOs in Ghana or across Africa or in the US, you find that NGOs are typically under-resourced. So they have very little funding compared to the for-profit sector. And then they are understaffed. So that NGOs have very few staff to deliver on so much workload. Yeah. So normally, any NGO across the world, you will see that dynamic playing out in them. So for you to now imagine that the few staff in Ghanaian CSOs that were already doing 2 or 3 times their normal workload, because of the cuts from dependency on USAID funding, these CSOs have had to further reduce or cut back on staffing between 30 and 50%. It really spells doom for the mission. Now let me step out of Ghana and look across the world and look across Africa in particular. I'll tell you why the title of this conversation is very important. The title is Beyond Grants, Rethinking how we fund civil society in Ghana. According to a study that was released in October 2024 by the Bridgespan Group, they found out that 90% of African NGOs or CSOs got funding from only two sources. So from governments and from UN agencies. And this was in October, before all of this chaos started in January of this year. Now, what I have seen by following the data, by having conversations, by scoping the landscape since January is these two sources have significantly declined. They are no longer trustworthy. You can no longer trust them to fund your work as a Ghanaian CSO anymore. Now, I will start with the first source, which is governments, and then talk a little bit about the UN. Governments, it's no longer news that USAID has fallen, but perhaps you don't know the scale of what that implies, the gap that it has created in financing for African NGOs. So USAID gave $12 billion to African CSOs last year, and now all of that 12 billion is gone. So it first started from pausing on foreign aid allocation in January, and then eventually the USAID was dismantled. They shut down virtually more than 6,200 programs, sacked more than 10,000 staff. And the final debt to USAID literally was on July 1, when USAID was officially absorbed into the US State Department. Now, I've gotten funding from both USAID and State Department before. State Department's funding is very small. It's more foreign policy focused. They are not as broad. They're not working on healthcare, on climate change, and all of those other broad mandates that USAID has. So for you to absorb USAID into State Department, you're trying to say that all of those key priorities that USAID was funding across Africa in particular is going to be lost. So I speak to people across Africa, African CSOs, and they tell me, yeah, don't worry. I'm sure State Department will still give us more money. The US funding system will bounce back. And I tell them it's not possible, because if you look at President Trump's 2026 budget that he sends to the US Congress, he actually cut back on he cut back on funding allocation to aid. So allocation to aid that comes to Africa and to the rest of the world. He cut back on it by more than 85%. So what he's trying to say is from 2026, they are going to fund even almost 90% less what they were funding as at 2024. So I tell my clients, I tell NGOs, CSOs that I train, I tell them, for now, at least for the next couple of years, I think it's helpful if you forget US funding. And other people tell me, okay, we can just simply pivot towards European government funding. But that's also a problem, because we didn't notice, but particularly from the peak of European government funding in 2023, it has started declining very rapidly since then. Now, if you look at funding allocations in 2025 alone, Germany has cut funding allocations to foreign aid by 9%, France by 11%, and then the UK has reduced their level of foreign aid by a very wide percentage, actually. So it used to be like 0.7% of their gross national income or their GDP. And now they brought it down to 0.5%. It might look a bit small, but what that means is, in reality, by 2027, the UK will cut up to 40 billion pounds worth of funding that they send across the world. So that's challenging. What this means is you can't rely on governments anymore. So there's the second part, which is UN funding. The problem with UN funding is that the UN got more than 70% of their budgets directly from the US government, and the US government has literally ended all of that funding right now. As a result, the UN is in crisis. So currently, less than 10% of the UN's 2025 humanitarian budget has been funded. The budget is about $47 billion. What that means is that the UN itself is scrambling to cover its costs. So for instance, in UNICEF, there are more than 25% cuts to their budget. In OCHA, the coordinating agency for all humanitarian agencies, there are more than 20% cuts there. What is the UN responding? So now they're saying, starting from next month, literally like in the next week or in the next 2 weeks when they meet for the UN80, they're going to implement what they call the UN80 initiative. And you can Google this maybe during this webinar outside or after. What it means is they are going to merge various UN agencies together, and they're going to cut back on staffing. So now we're hearing talk about them merging key agencies like WHO, UNICEF, UNHCR, WFP. Imagine them merging all of these to form one agency that does the work that all of these other guys are doing. What this means for your Ghanaian CSO is that by next month, it is possible that the UN agency that funded you last year, it might not even exist by next month. It might have been merged into like another superstructure or something because the UN doesn't have money either. So this brings me to why we're having the conversation today. And and this is something I try to emphasize. You need to look beyond grant writing. You need to look at other forms of funding that enables you to do good in the world, that enables you to continue delivering on the mission that you know your people deserve, that you know you want to, the passion that you carry. You need to find different ways of funding it. And when I tell people this, I experience like pushback from them. They're like, oh no, this is how we've done it for the last 20 years. This is, oh no, things will turn back better. Maybe there was COVID before, but things bounce back. And I'm saying this is a lot more, this is a lot more permanent than COVID disruptions to the sector. And one thing I want to encourage you with is to say, um, when you think of change and how you need to change into other things and you're feeling that pushback, I would encourage you to fall in love with the problem and not your solution. So in this sense, I mean, fall in love with the problem that you're tackling and forget about the solution of how you used to fund it. How you used to wait for funding from the UN or from governments or any of those kinds of things. Explore how you can be more creative, be more innovative in your funding, and focus on and get the resources that you need to solve or to tackle that problem. That's what you need to focus on. So I understand this is a diverse group, and when putting together this presentation, I was really thinking of various options in terms of alternative funding models that your Ghanaian CSO can explore, can consider when when looking to diversify your income. So what I suggest is don't just focus on one of these measures. Try to combine a number of them because if you focus on corporate partnerships, who knows, maybe somewhere down the line something could go wrong or you could experience one or two issues there and then you're stuck again the way you're stuck right now with USAID cuts and with decline in funding from governments and from UN agencies. So my suggestion, my advice is to merge or combine a couple of these models to really strengthen your capacity. I want to start corporate partnerships. And to emphasize corporate partnerships a bit, I want to quote a study by WACSI. So last year they did a study on the capacity needs of CSOs across West Africa. And there were a lot of things there, but there's one thing in the study that caught my eye. They found out that only 3% of West African CSOs are actually leveraging corporate partnerships. Only 3%. So the question now is, what are the remaining 97% of us doing about free money on the table that businesses offer or free support that businesses can give you? And what I want to say here, there's a lot to say about corporate partnerships. I provide one-on-one support on it. I do masterclass trainings on it. So there's a lot of things to share. But I'll just talk about I'll just discuss it like 2 slides. And one thing I want to do is show you why businesses will want to partner with your Ghanaian CSO. That's the first thing. So I want to show why businesses want to partner with your Ghanaian CSO. So I think of it in 2 ways. I think of it in terms of what is pushing businesses to partner with a Ghanaian CSO, and so push in terms of what is compelling them, what makes it compulsory that they partner with a Ghanaian CSO. And then I think of it in another way in terms of what is pulling them towards partnering with you as a CSO. So this second set of factors is what I call what encourages them. Yeah, what makes it good for business if they partner with you. So that's just how to put it. And I start with the part that is compulsory, that makes it compliant or compelling, and that's CSR and ESG. So over the last at least 30, almost 40 years, there's been a robust framework and a robust school of thought in business schools and outside business schools that companies need to give back to the society. So you can't just keep making money off of the places where you work. You can't keep extracting resources from there or keep generating resources without thinking about the people that your business is serving. So right now there's a mandate and CSR just literally means the business has to be has to be a citizen that is socially responsible, that is contributing to the development of the society. So from CSR, there's something a lot more significant, which is called corporate social investment, which is CSI. And now it's talking about funding and in-kind donations and volunteer support and yeah, and matching gifts and just like various ways in which a company can actually support your CSO. But in a nutshell, it is that you can't keep doing business as usual. You have to contribute towards how people develop, how societies solve their issues. Then there's another new metric, we call it ESG, and it's environmental, social, and governance. The part that concerns you really is the social part. And now companies are being mandated to double down on that idea of CSR. So it's not just something that you can think of doing or you might not do. It's something that you literally need to prove that you are delivering on an annual basis. So when I think of what compels businesses here, I think of at least four different actors that businesses are compelled to demonstrate their CSR to. So the first is the government. So in your annual filings, your tax filings, and all of those things, a business must demonstrate how they have complied with CSR and ESG. So you have to discuss what projects you carried out, how you're able to provide support, what areas you tackled, all of those kinds of good things. So that's one. You have to report to the government. The second thing is you need to report to your board. So particularly if you're a big business and you have a board, and then let's say you're listed on the Ghanaian Stock Exchange, your board, even generally, even if you're not listed publicly, your board is supposed to demand that you show evidence of how you're giving back to the society, how you're supporting people to address any kind of societal issues, etc. So there's accountability to the board. Then there's accountability to the shareholders. So people like me and you that let's say we buy stock in Telecel or in MTN Ghana or in Jumia Ghana or any of these kind of companies that are listed on the Ghanaian Stock Exchange. Every quarter, once the CEO is making a quarterly earnings call, they are supposed to reflect on what they have done that quarter to give back to the society. So if they are able to maybe play around it in the quarter, at the end of the year, when the earnings calls reaches a particular, at the end of the fiscal year, they actually have to document what they have done in terms of giving back to the society. Then again, there's accountability to the host communities. So particularly in places like Nigeria, where the oil companies have held sway for a while, host communities are very vocal, requesting reparations, requesting significant support to mitigate their livelihoods that have been lost as a result of oil companies' activities. So host communities around, and I'm sure that's how it is in Ghana as well, host communities in places where businesses are working, they're increasingly putting pressure on companies to demonstrate how they're helping to solve societal problems. So that's the push factor that makes businesses want to support you. The pull factor, which is something that makes it which is good for their business, is there are two things I think about here. So brand management and profit. Brand management means it positions them as being responsive to the society's needs. So research shows that up to 85% of cost consumers, particularly since the COVID-19 era, so in the last 5 years, up to 85% of consumers want to purchase goods and services from a business that is doing good in the world. So there are a lot of options now. We all know there are a lot of business models. So now consumers are like, if I buy this from you, how do I see you making a difference? So they want to, they don't just want to give you their money because your product is good. They want to give you their money because your business practices aligns with their values. And it shows your company values can be seen in the way you give back to the society. So businesses do this and they're taking it a lot more seriously because CSR or giving back to the Ghanaian society positions them, increases their brand's awareness in the minds of Ghanaian consumers. And again, it shows that they are responsive to the Ghanaian society's needs. So that's one, it helps them keep their current customers. Then even prospective customers, the business is always trying to get more customers as much as possible. So even prospective customers are interested in purchasing or in switching loyalties to companies that are actually doing good in the world. So that's something that's coming through really clearly in business research around the world generally. The second aspect, apart from brand management, or the third aspect generally, but the second under the pull factor will be profit making. So it might look a bit, it might look a bit confusing, but actually giving back to the society is a marketing strategy that leads to more sales and profits for the company. So I used to work with Jumia Nigeria in the e-commerce industry, and then as a sales and marketing team leader, what I would do at the time would be partner with youth-led NGOs, women-led NGOs in particular communities, in local communities in southwestern Nigeria, to find a way for Jumia to sponsor some of those events, to find a way to identify with change movements that were going on in the grassroots. And all of that is what we call, so there's like the traditional marketing, and then there's what we call like inbound marketing, where you're putting out your content, you're putting out your brand name in places that can attract new customers, in places that position you as someone that has the same values with your target kind of customers. So when you do that more and more often, you are able to secure the loyalty of your current customers, and you're able to increase the perception of your business in the minds of prospective customers. So that is a marketing strategy. So CSR typically is carried out from either a CSI department within a business, but most times it's carried out by the marketing department in a business, because it's a tried and trusted marketing tool that helps you spread the word out for your business and leads to profit. The final thing here is, when a company gives back, it helps them retain their best employees in the company. So research shows that 80% of Gen Z and millennial employees, they don't want to work for a company that is not giving back to the society. So they are more socially conscious. They are not just interested in big paychecks. They're not just interested in fat salaries or perks of the job. They want you to involve them. You want you to give them platforms to make an impact. So when a business partners with your Ghanaian CSO, and your Ghanaian CSO has a project where the business employees can come in physically and support the work that you do and implement the projects, then it gives them that opportunity. It feels that social impact desire that the business employees have. So it makes them more fulfilled, more satisfied, and it helps the business keep them. It helps them retain the business. And this is an interesting perspective across the world, really, across Africa, across the US. It's something that shows that everybody wants to make impact, and they're looking for options, whether they work in the business space or whether they work with NGOs. They want to make a difference. So the second part of this is, what can you do? Okay, the businesses want to do this. There are things that makes them compel them to support CSOs. It's good for their business. How can you get into their space? So I think of how a Ghanaian CSO can pitch to businesses. And the first thing, I think of it in like three ways. So you have to talk business. So you have to step out of your CSO, your nonprofit bubble, and speak like a business in a way that grabs their attention, in a way that shows mutual value. There's a concept called shared value between the business and then the NGO or the CSO. So in a way that is mutually beneficial. The second thing is sustainability plan. And then the third part is impact metrics. So talk business means you need to think about the work that you do in business terms. So the people that you serve, you need to look at them like a target market. If it was a business, they would create like a customer persona. If you're doing marketing, you want to know who your customer is, how old are they. So you're combining their demographics and their demographics, like in terms of their normal characteristics, and psychographics, like around their psychology or around they're thinking more of their innate abilities, something that is not physically available. So that's how a business will do it if they're thinking of their target market. And that's what you need to speak about when you're pitching to a business. So obviously, it's not a target market, you're talking about your beneficiaries. But what I'm trying to say is you have to know details about them. What is their age range? What are they typically interested in? How do you serve them? What are their ambitions? What are their core needs? How does your project meet those needs? That kind of conversation. Then again, you need to move to consider what you're tackling, the problem that you're solving. It's not just saying you want to end gender-based violence. You need to think about it in terms of your target audience, your target beneficiaries, and how that mission plays into where you are currently working. So the problem you're tackling, but most importantly, a business will be asking you, what is the demand for your solution? So that demand means, how are people interacting with your projects? What are people saying about the work that you're doing in those local communities? How are they perceiving it? How are they opening themselves up to receive you? And then finally, under talk business, you need to show what's in it for the business. The business is not a donor that will just give you money and then feel good about it. No, it has to meet their own needs, it has to meet their own goals. And internally, a business has their own CSR and their ESG goals. So you need to think about them. So step out from what you need. Oh, you need 10,000, maybe 10,000 CDs for this particular project. So step out of that and think, okay, what can I give to a business? Can I give them more brand awareness? Can I give them more can I connect them to, can I give them, help them break into new audiences in terms of new audiences in the people, in the communities where I work in? Can I give them some airtime as well? Can I align with them and also help improve their reputation in the community? You need to think of what you can get. Don't stop thinking of what you can get from them. You think of what you can give them. The second thing is your sustainability plan. So 50% of businesses are small businesses around the world. They fail within the first 5 years, 50%. And it's not about money. They don't fail because of money. They don't fail because of staffing. They fail because they don't have a plan. They don't have a business plan. They are not they are not implementing that business plan. They are not constantly evolving themselves to meet the needs of the places where they work. So that's what a business knows that statistic. And you are a small business, more or less. Maybe that's a webinar from the other day. But like a CSO is actually run like a business. You have a mission, you have resources, you're trying to meet a particular outcome. That's generally what a business is. So a business will be looking at you very suspiciously when you approach them first. You need to convince them of your plan to not end up like the statistic that says 50% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years. So you need to prove that you're not going to fail within the next couple of years. They want to invest money, they want to invest time, they want to invest their employees' time and support in CSOs that are thinking about the future, that have long-term strategic plans, that have diversified funding mix. So show them how you're not dependent on only USAID funding, for instance, amongst other things like that. So what I think is helpful is if you present a diversified funding mix, how you're generating end income, you're generating individual giving from the community, all of those things. Finally, impact metrics. You need to show how you've made impact from beginning to date. It's not how many activities you've done or the list of people, how many outputs you've carried out. That's different. What has changed in the lives of people that have encountered your trainings or encountered your programming? What are those tangible effects that you can see as a result? Those things take time. It's not something that you see almost immediately, but at least if you've been working for some time, for maybe 5 years plus, you should be able to show evidence of the outcome that we have made. That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear, oh, I did a training I've empowered 10,000 women and girls or youth and women through online trainings. That's an output. Like what exactly has happened? Have they used that training to get new jobs? Have they used that to get increased income? What exactly are those outcomes that have been changed? Then you need to use human angle success stories. So pick a particular beneficiary and tell the story of how the beneficiary was before they encountered your CSO, what happened as a result of that intervention, and then has it changed? How have they changed as a result? How have their circumstances changed as a result? Finally, you need to be showing a good track record of success as seen on social media. A business is constantly evaluating, even when they're trying to form a partnership with another business, they're constantly doing due diligence, constantly evaluating their options. So you need to demonstrate that you have a track record of success. So any success that you have, the one way to show it is by publicizing it on social media. And so businesses can be attracted to that once they Google you and they do their own background research on you. Okay, so that is what I want to share about corporate partnerships. There's a lot more to unpack. But for now, I think that should get you in the right headspace, in the right frame of mind to take it up from there and explore what you can do with local businesses around you. The second alternative funding model is
Sorry,
one I like.
just a prompt that if 10 minutes, just because of time constraints.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, I'm seeing there
all right,
actually.
all right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Social enterprise models. And what I like about social enterprise models is you make the money, you generate the money yourself. You're not dependent on the company. You're not trying to maybe fit into their priorities or maybe not focus too much on your own priorities or anything. It feels like a way where you raise the money that is required for you to do the work that you're doing. And this is very important. Say right now. One thing I like about social enterprises is because it brings like a steady income stream. It's something that if you set it up right, it's not easy to set up, that's the first thing. But if you set it up right and you're able to take steps to cultivate those and you cultivate the social enterprise models, and you invest time into making sure that those models are sound, and then you put significant staff time on it eventually in line with alongside your other programs, it would eventually bring results for you, and it will continue bringing results for a long time. I think of it in at least three ways. There are a lot of models, social enterprise and income models you can think of. But the first is consulting. And I think consulting is like a low-hanging fruit for CSOs because you're not buying anything else. You're not recruiting new staff. You're just literally looking at how to monetize your expertise that you already have in-house, that people already are able to what you can already give. So whether it's high quality services like trainings or research or technical support, you just need to figure out how to package it in a way and to figure out what kind of audiences you should provide them to, and then you can get up and running. And again, it's not like I said, it's not like a quick fix. It's not something that will just automatically keep bringing resources or income for you if you don't put in the work, if you don't structure the consulting services, if you don't price yourself correctly. You need to step out of your nonprofit bubble of trying to give things out for free or trying to give discounts to people. If you're providing a consulting service, you need to adequately capture the cost what it costs you to set up the consulting service, and then what profit margin you will be able to maintain, regardless of whoever is buying those consulting services. But if you set it up right, it is something that you can get started on without a lot of external support or recruitment of other stuff inside. The second thing I like, and the second social enterprise model you can consider is paid membership communities. And here you don't really need to be like an expert in like solving the issues that your community or the NGOs in your sector are struggling with. You just need to really understand what that problem is. And you need to be able to figure out the pain points of people in your networks of either beneficiaries or fellow NGOs or companies that are working in adjacent sectors like yours. You need to figure out those pain points and find a way to bring people together to try and solve them. You don't have to solve them, but you have to create a platform where people can collaborate to solve them. So once you identify the value that you can provide your network, you now need to look at what is feasible in terms of how how much they can pay for that value, for that platform that brings them together to work towards solving common challenges that they all face, for the resources you can provide, for the connections, access to finance, access to networks that you can give them. Then after that, you need to look at one way to do that again is to consider what kinds of experiments, like it said, membership community model, where maybe you can bring in people to the community for free at the very beginning, or define the benefits of transitioning from like a free member of the community to a paid member and state those benefits very clearly in a way that everybody can know that, okay, you can upgrade your membership into being a paid member of this community, and then you can access these kinds of benefits as a result of that. Then the third social enterprise model to think of or to consider putting together is selling sales of products and services, and also using your existing assets. So you can decide to develop and sell toolkits, webinars, courses, research products that you put together, and then you can rent out things that you already have, those assets that you have in-house. So from office space to your Wi-Fi or technical infrastructure to training venues to equipment to M&E services. All of those things are things that you can consider and you can put it up to serve your network, to serve the sector, and then as a result to generate some resources. When I think of how you can get up and running around social enterprise models, I think it's important for you to sit down and find out what is unique about you that stands you out from the crowd of people working in your space, and what sets you apart and makes you lucrative for for a potential customer or a consumer of your services. Then the second thing is to leverage the brand recognition you already have. You've been working in this space for what, 15, 20, 30 years. You have a lot of networks. You have a lot of recognition by people that matter. You need to look at how you can bring all of that in a way to market. I know it's not something that most NGOs like to think about. They think sales and marketing is perhaps a bit icky or But you need to get comfortable with being able to brand yourself in a way that people will want to come and purchase whatever service you are selling, whatever product you are providing as a social enterprise. So you need to really do like a SWOT analysis, understand what those strengths and weaknesses are in-house, and then look at those opportunities that exist for you to take advantage of. Then finally, again, this ties into like the SWOT analysis, understand your internal capacity. Then it is work to put up a social enterprise model. Anyone telling you that it's going to be up and running immediately, I don't think that is accurate. I think that you need to know that this will involve significant time investments. And for a social enterprise, it might take a while before you break even, before you start generating profits that covers the cost of setting that up. So be patient, but invest in core business functions like product development, sales, and marketing. But most importantly, spend time doing market research in understanding your ideal customer for your social enterprise models, and then design marketing campaigns that are targeted towards those customers in particular. So this takes me to the third, and I hope I'm not doing badly on time. This takes me to the third alternative funding model, local fundraising, individual giving. The whole idea here is to secure support of your local community and individuals for your cause. Again, you need to leverage those existing relationships that you've put together with partners and beneficiaries. One aspect that I think a lot of CSOs are not doing, I'm not sure if they think is impossible or it doesn't just come to mind, is your local high net worth individuals. You have to map them out. You have to know who are the high net worth individuals in Accra, in Kumasi, in a couple of other towns, and you have to approach them. You have to approach them so that they can get to know the work that you're doing, the impact you're making in local communities, and why they need to support you in cash, in kind, in access to finance, in access to their networks. You need to leverage that. When we think of local fundraising, most times we're just thinking of people donating a few CDs, a couple dollars. But I think if you invest time in getting to know people that have high net worth within your space, and you map out what they need, you find out what they're interested in, you consider any histories that they already have around supporting philanthropy, local philanthropy, and then you approach them and you demonstrate all the insights, the impact that you have made up to this point in time, you can get them interested in supporting you in a very big way compared to like the other smaller supports that you can get from the general public. How you can go about this is, like I said, design projects that address community needs, paint a compelling picture of the problem. Let people really understand the various dimensions of the problem. It's not just to quote some statistics. Let's do statistics match with some storytelling skills of how this problem impacts people in the communities where you're working in, and then how your work addresses the problem. The final thing here is, or the second, or one of the key things to bear in mind is you need to thank the local donors that donate to your work promptly. And this is a problem I see from my time working across American INGOs and various African NGOs. You don't thank people. People donate to you, but you either forget about it, you don't remember about it, you don't call them. You need to call people that donate to you, whether they donate via email or via crowdfunding on social media or in your local communities, whether they come to your office. You need to follow them up. You need to thank them for that donation and let them know what that donation has done in your community. Then give them an opportunity to witness your impact firsthand. Invite them to participate in your projects. Invite them to see the impact, to talk to your beneficiaries and see how the donation they give you is making a difference. The fourth alternative funding model is endowments. And here you want to put together an investment. It's an investment basically that will continue giving you long-term financial support for your CSO's work. So it could take various forms, from stocks to bonds to real estate. The benefit of this is that the principal investments that you put together is preserved, and on at least an annual basis, you keep getting returns on that endowment. It's not very easy to set up, but if you're able to get a number of donors, a number of individuals to pitch into it, to contribute little sums of money, or if you get a number of donors, both local ones and local high net worth individuals, for instance, to put aside some money, and you convince a number of people to pitch in, more like crowdfund the principal for the investment, then it can be something that would generate some steady incomes that can cover things that most donors do not fund. So your operating costs, your salaries, your utilities, all of those kinds of things. How to leverage them involves analyzing your programming to really know what kind of endowment option is important, then get your leadership and board buy-in on the endowment benefits and requirements. Then you have to know you have to set a target amount for your endowments and find ways of mobilizing various kinds of donors. So both institutional donors, companies, high net worth individuals, local individuals in your local communities. Find ways to crowdfund that money and then put it up in whatever form of endowment option you're using, then find ways to monitor and evaluate the performance of it. So thank you so much. This has brought me to the point where I pause and maybe turn it over to Q&A, and after that we can have a conversation around the case studies.
Thank you so much, Orwell. Very comprehensive. I was tempted because of time constraints to interrupt, but this is very, very turbulent times. You don't interrupt wisdom and information that can change our circumstances. So I want to open it up for questions, please, contributions. Please, you can also post in the chats, but I'll encourage folks to raise their hands, okay? And then I'll just give you, and please let us be concise and precise so that, we don't take all the time and we give everybody an opportunity. So please, Angelina, and then Eugenia, and then our colleague from APRED. So Angelina, please go ahead.
My question is, so I'm registered as an NGO, but then I'm interested in the social enterprise model, but currently the registration says I'm an NGO. So how do I legally move from being a registered NGO into using the social enterprise model?
Okay, thank you for the question. Just to quickly respond to that, because in Ghana, if you look at our laws, we don't have a specific law that regulates social enterprises. So if you're doing a social enterprise, and as long as you're making profit, you have to register it as a for-profit, right? So a limited liability company. I'm sure your NGO was registered as limited by a guarantee. Yes. I know that there's a social enterprise policy that's being worked on, and we are hoping that in the future we'll have a specific social enterprise kind of law. But right now we don't. So you have to register it as a for-profit. Just to quickly say that, because maybe our resource person may not know this. So yes, please. So let's take 3 questions. There was Eugenia, our colleague from APRED, Ashek, Sheikh, sorry, and then Isaac, please, quickly.
Okay.
Eugenia.
Okay, so I'm Eugenia. Okay, so at my organization, we do consultancy at the same time we do the non-profit as well. So the consultancy is ADL services. So we want to find out if we can register the ADL consultancy services separately from the non-profit stuff that we are doing.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, in Ghana you can definitely register it separately and run it as a consultancy. Yes, you can do that. But you must analyze the implications of doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, because a consultancy, when you're running it, like I said, it's a for-profit. So it has its own regulations and requirements. Yes. So our colleagues from APRED, Isaac, I think, yes, I saw Sheikh, but please, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. This is Matthew from APRED Ghana. I just want to find out some little bit point my boss did mention on the pools factor in terms of partnership. He did mention that on the pools factor, we need to make the businesses also make their impact or give back to the societies that they are serving. And in that place, I was looking at it to be like, do we need to get laws or rules that governs it in a way that the businesses that are into the societies, they should be well known that they need to give back to the society they are serving, because some businesses, when you come as social enterprise, the civil society to explain to them that you want to partner with them to do something, then they think like, oh, you are just coming to maybe like deceive them to get some money maybe get some kind of things that you just want to use it for your own purposes. But I'm just asking to see if there is a way that we can put some regulations or rules that can govern us to regulate that every institution or every business should know that everything they are doing, they must pay back to the society. That's my question, please.
Okay, thank you so much. The resource person will respond. Isaac, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Charles. And thank you, Orwell, for taking us through the presentation. So under the social enterprise models that he gave, I realized that there were 3 areas that he was talking about: consulting services, paid membership communities, and then product sales and asset use. I want to ask his opinion on the paid membership, because in our sector, a lot of organizations want to be members of associations. Unfortunately, when it gets to the end of the year, paying dues or subscriptions becomes a challenge. I would like to ask him, from his experience, what is the best approach to handle some of these things? Because members want to get the full benefits of what you are offering. However, paying the dues or subscription on a yearly basis becomes a challenge. Yet they are recognized as members of that organization or association. So in his experience, if you can share some nuggets or highlights. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just take 2 more questions and then he will respond to the questions. Akwesi Prempe, please.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon, Charles.
Afternoon.
This is Akwesi from Safe Child Advocacy, Kumasi. My question is, first of all, sorry, let me say a big thank you to Oswald for that wonderful presentation. What caught my attention most was the endowment, when he was talking about the endowment fund or something of that sort, where he mentioned that maybe NGOs, we can also look at getting into real estate and other stuff, because we do receive a lot of volunteers. So I was thinking, wow, this is good. So in a situation where NGOs are not necessarily here in Ghana to make profits, because we are classified as non-profit organizations. So I want to know, should it be that maybe we get a real estate or we get a space where we think that we want to run this particular facility, so that when volunteers come around, they can also benefit? Does that mean that we are, maybe for a small fee, does that mean that we are making profit, and for that matter, we cannot be considered an NGO? Or even if we can be considered an NGO, that do we still meet that requirement of a non-profit organization if we try to do that, just to raise some small money to support our services?
Thank you so much, Akwesi. I think we'll take one from Habib, then give chance for Orwell to respond. Then I'll come to Francis and Ampim, and then Papa. So Habib, please. Habib.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's Habib. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, afternoon. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. So, thank you for today's presentation. It adds what we have already hearing. But one of the things I will urge members is not to just listen, but to also put into practice what the knowledge that has been shared. Mostly that is the problem. If you don't try it, the knowledge, then you will not see the effectiveness of it. We always hear of that. I was at the CSO, the forum, when you took us through something similar, Mr. Van Dyke. And I think that if we try to put that into practice, it will help us all. But one of my addition I want to contribution, we should also not look at only the companies and other things. We should look within. We in our organization have started a program called Staff Philanthropy. And that is from the board, because the non-profit organization, you are already also benefiting from somebody's goodwill. How is the staff also contributing to the mission of the organization? So if you are paid salary because somebody's goodwill, we must also learn how to also the pain of giving. So in our organization, the board came out with something called Staff Philanthropy program, which staff contributes monthly between 50 cedis to 100 Ghana cedis. And that goes to a community program within the area so that you learn to manage things. We have a lot of stuff that we do. And currently, I think it started about a year ago or so. We have so far distributed close to 30,000 Ghana cedis from staff salaries. So this is an internal thing. We must learn the pain of the donor, how the donor gives, and also learn so that we can manage whatever we give. So when we are engaging with them, we know how to speak, how to engage them, because we know how it feels to give out money. Yeah.
So thank you. So like I said, I'll come to Francis, I'll come to Ampim and Papa, but opportunity to respond to our colleagues with some of your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. I've had a good time typing up all of the questions coming through. I'm really happy that you've been able to engage with the conversation today and you have some thoughts around it. That shows that you are looking to see how you can put it into motion and get running, which is the whole idea. Like Mr. Habib said just now, these are not new things that you have not heard before, particularly in the last 7 months. It's about, can you get started? Can you take a first step and get moving so you can reap the benefits of this? I will start from the gentleman from APRED Ghana that talked about the fact that businesses might, some businesses do not know about that CSR function that they need to perform. They don't know they need to give back to communities. And some businesses might dismiss you as just looking for handouts or looking for support. What I think, and he's asking if we can better publicize the rules. What I think you should do is a bit of research before you approach any business. So the way I do it is I first look for businesses that are, let's say, publicly listed, maybe on the Ghanaian Stock Exchange. Those kinds of businesses already have a fiduciary responsibility to their board, to their shareholders to do CSR. So it's not a question of, do you do CSR? It is, what kind of CSR do you do? Are you doing it in education? Are you doing it in healthcare? I already know that they have to be doing something for them to be publicly listed. They are liable to their shareholders. That's one. The second thing I do in terms of market research is to do a lot of analysis on Ghanaian, or that's what I would do, maybe review on the Ghanaian, on GNA, for instance, the Ghanaian News Agency, or other Ghanaian blogs and social media. I want to see what companies are giving back to the society and publicizing it. One thing you should know is companies must publicize their CSR because it's good for their business. They need people to know about it. So no company will do it and hide the fact that they're doing it. There are not some of those donors that you might get, some of those foundation donors that will say they want to be anonymous. No company wants to be anonymous. They want to be able to report on it. So it will be out there in their media, it will be out in social media, it will be out on news channels in Ghana, radio stations. So put a clean eye on those platforms to really know which kinds of companies are doing what kind of stuff. Then if you're interested in a particular company and they're pretty mid-sized, go to their website, read their annual report. In their annual report for 2024, for instance, they would have reflected on any CSR initiatives that they are doing. So once you find that information, so you need to do, it's not just going to any business around. I understand that, yeah, you should take advantage of businesses in your local communities. Yeah, but if you're looking at, you don't want to waste your time, that's one. You want to spend your energies on businesses that will most likely say yes to you instead of no. So the real businesses, the ones that know what they're doing, the ones that know the benefits for their business, they are doing CSR and they are publicizing it. So before you approach a business, take time to do research, to find out what they're already doing in that space, and then tailor your ask to them in a way that makes sense. The second question from Isaac on social enterprise models and how people want to get stuff for free, that is very true. That's something you should resist as much as possible. You can use a free membership to draw them inside, but then you keep showing them the value of upgrading from a free membership to a paid membership for a couple Ghana cedis. So you can say, let's say for, I don't know, 50 Ghana cedis, these are the benefits you will get in terms of more access, maybe more privilege, opportunities to have one-on-one conversations, access to networks, access to resources, etc. So you can create like a tiered membership level where people can subscribe and get various kinds of benefits going forward. One thing I also do is ensure that you are, like I said, providing significant value to them. Let people know the benefits of contributing some resources to take advantage of those kinds of benefits you get for those various membership levels. And then you need to be very conscious about how to price your services. So don't just put a price of maybe 100 Ghana cedis because you think that's what people can afford. You don't know what people can afford if they value what you're providing to them. So calculate the cost that it takes to actually provide that service in the paid membership community. Let's say you have a community of funding for fundraising, for instance, and you promise them that you're going to provide them with funding opportunities, you're going to provide them with funding jobs, you provide them with webinars, maybe on a bi-weekly basis to improve your fundraising. Calculate what it costs for you to have a team member constantly monitoring the WhatsApp group or Telegram channel, responding to inquiries. Calculate what that means for how you would be able to ensure that you deliver on the promises that you make and stand by it. Don't reduce. All you simply need to do is, if people are not paying, the free members, if they're not paying for it, you need to do more marketing and find people that will pay for, that will value the value that you provide and pay money for it, because people will pay if you show them the value that they can get from it. Then for WACSI, who is talking about endowments and also the fact that CSOs can't make profits, is it nice for you to get into a real estate and then can you make some money? When I think of the endowments, I'm not really thinking of you like maybe having like a real estate arm. I'm thinking of you investing in a real estate building or in stocks or in government bonds. So it's not really like you running the thing it's not like you running the real estate company or you actually doing the buildings or collecting the rent. It's your money being invested in that so you can get some returns from it. So it's a bit more passive investing, where the market just, if you're doing stocks, the market just runs on its own. And of course, obviously, you need to do your due diligence and you need to monitor it. But it's not like you're physically involved in that endowment, like in the day-to-day operations. That's one. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking you should start a real estate maybe side hustle. I'm thinking that that could be one of your endowment choices. The second thing is, I understand the legal implications, and I think that's what Charles has spoken to a number of times. Yeah, as an NGO, even across Africa, when I work with organizations, there could be those legal hurdles, or you're not supposed to make profit, or you have to declare it, or you have to be taxed on any profits any income that you raise. What I tell clients is what I said at the very beginning of this webinar. I said, focus on the problem and not your solution. Up till this point in time, your solution was being an NGO, being a not-for-profit. But if you really want to solve that problem around gender-based violence, if you want to solve the problem around education challenges in rural communities, if you need to be a social enterprise to do that, then register as a social enterprise to do that and run the two arms like Eugenia asked. Run the path that is social enterprise, run the path that is non-profit, and get resources from one and you can put it into the other if your legal situation allows you to do that. But that's how most people do it. They run those two arms. One is for profit, one is non-profit, and the profits from the for-profit is used to fund the operating cost of the non-profit. Just be open towards doing what you need to do to make the difference that you want to make. Then Habib talked about the staff philanthropy. I think that's great. It's great that staff are contributing and have contributed up to 30,000 Ghana cedis. I would put a caveat though. Remember that generally speaking, NGO salaries are like the lowest in the whole world compared to like other sectors, compared to staff of other sectors. So try not to put too much of a financial burden on your staff, who I am sure, and it's not just your NGO alone, it's globally, on your staff who I'm sure are not earning significant as much as they should be earning, simply because you don't have enough funding, obviously, to pay them. So don't put too much financial pressure on them. I would prefer that while it's helpful to do the staff philanthropy, I would prefer that you put your energies into individual giving and soliciting for support through crowdfunding or individual giving, maybe through running individual giving campaigns on email. I think that's better than maybe mandating all your staff to give back. I mean, it's a good thing if they choose to do it, but don't make it compulsory because you don't want it to become a burden. You don't want them to become disenchanted. So I took a case study on one particular alternative funding model, and I'm looking at the corporate partnerships. And the whole idea of the case study is, what would you do if you were this fictitious NGO? Let's call the NGO Accra Youth for Change, for instance. And what you're doing is you're bridging digital inequality in rural communities of Accra. You're training youth and women in digital skills, advocacy, and job placements in Ghana's digital economy. Now, you found out that MTN Ghana does a lot of CSR. Remember how I answered one of the last questions about what companies can you approach? So how did you find out that MTN Ghana does CSR? You read their annual reports, you track them on social media, you followed them on Ghanaian news channels, TV and radio. You heard about the work they are doing. And then you also, saw it reported in reports to their board. So you know they do CSR. So now what you want to do is, and MTN Ghana is what? A telecoms agency. So it fits with your work at Accra Youth for Change that is bridging digital inequality in rural communities. So you want to establish a corporate partnership. What you're supposed to do, and that's what the case study is asking, prepare a 3-minute pitch on your proposed project, why they should support you, what you can offer them in return. When I train people around this, or when I'm working with them one-on-one, I tell them, if you have 3 minutes to make a pitch, and obviously you can have more than 3 minutes eventually, but the idea is you should think about it in 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is, who are you? What impact have you made? Who are the people you work for? How have they changed as a result of the work that you're doing? The second paragraph would be, what does MTN Ghana do in terms of CSR, in terms of ESG? What are their current CSR initiatives? How are they going about it? What are their CSR ambitions for maybe this year, 2025, or for like the next 2 years, for instance? The third paragraph would be, what project do you want support from MTN Ghana on? How do you want that support? What impact will that project make? How do you want to get that support? And how will that project feed into MTN Ghana's corporate social responsibility plans? So let me give an attempt to this. Hi, let's imagine that the MTN Ghana, usually you want to address the corporate social responsibility director, director of corporate social investment, or the marketing director. Most times CSR is done by either the CSI or the CSR department or the marketing department. So let's say the CSR department director is, I don't know, Mr. Yeboah, for instance, who, by the way, is the name of one of my beloved primary school teachers here in Nigeria, Yeboah. So let's say it's Mr. Yeboah, and we'll say, hello, Mr. Yeboah. My name is Orwell Ahibe. I am the executive director at Accra Youth for Change. We are a nonprofit that is working to bridge digital inequality in rural communities of Accra. And we are doing this by empowering youth and women to pick up transformative digital skills and engage in the Ghanaian digital economy in a way that creates jobs and creates value and helps them fulfill their full potentials. We have been active we're established in the last 5 years, and in the last 5 years, we have succeeded in empowering more than 20,000 young men and women in slums and rural communities of Accra to secure up to establish jobs, more than 10,000 jobs, and establish more than 10,000 jobs in the digital technology space. And also we've enabled up to 5,000 of the people that we have worked with to get a sustained increase in their income as a result, up to 50% increase in income from their jobs in the digital inclusion space as a result of that. What we are working towards, the big, hairy, audacious goal that we have for Accra Youth for Change, is that by the year 2028, within the next 3 years, where we have scaled our impact across the 16 regions of Ghana and impacted more than 50,000 is probably too much, more than 25,000 young people with high-tech skills in digital literacy, in artificial intelligence, and also in data analysis, and enable those 25,000 people that have been impacted to create up to 30,000 jobs in the process, thus helping to solve the unemployment issues in Ghana, the unemployment challenge in Ghana. So that's the first paragraph. The second paragraph is, what does MTN Ghana do? We have discovered that the work that we do aligns with the priorities that MTN Ghana has in giving back to the Ghanaian society. So we know that MTN Ghana is a key partner in the 1 million coders program that has just been launched by the President Dramani's administration that seeks to create or establish, seeks to train 1 million Ghanaian coders, or empower 1 million Ghanaian youths with coding and digital technology skills within the next 2 years, to ensure that they are able to contribute and build the Ghanaian economy going forward. We also know that MTN Ghana has a foundation, and over the last 2-3 years, through your Start to Code program, you have been able to deliver and improve digital literacy for more than 10,000 secondary school children in schools across the 16 regions of Ghana. So we believe that the work that we do at Accra Youth for Change is something that scales the impact of MTN Ghana and enables you to further deliver on your promise of bridging digital inequality and ensuring digital inclusion for young people across the rural communities of Ghana. So the third paragraph now is, what do you want them to do for you? So we believe that there's an opportunity for you to scale the impact that you're making, particularly in the lives of young people. And what we have done is, from our work in the rural communities of Ghana, we have identified that there's a need for digital literacy programming that enables young people, starting from the secondary school level up onto universities, to pick up very impactful, high-quality artificial intelligence skills that makes them to become globally competitive in the marketplace, first to transform Ghana's economy, and then also to ensure that they're contributing their impact and enabling sustainable livelihoods. So this project is something we intend to carry out. It's a 1-year project we're looking to carry out in a particular, let's say, the East Legon region of Ghana, of Accra. And what we will do is conduct a lot of digital literacy in partnership with schools. We would also ensure that we will deliver, we will make an impact of more than 5,000 young people with high-tech in-demand skills, and provide employability pathways for them to secure jobs within the digital telecommunication space in MTN. So the cost of the financial implication of supporting this project from MTN Ghana is just about, it costs about 50,000 Ghana cedis to be able to deliver, to be able to partner with us to make this impact in the lives of marginalized kids from teenage years up until teenagers in secondary schools up until university level. We believe that this project provides an outlet for MTN Ghana for MTN Ghana's employees to come in and mentor these young people with their own tech skills, with their career paths, to enable them to make smart choices in pursuing sustainable livelihood options in the digital technology space. And we also believe that this is an opportunity for MTN Ghana as well to give back to a community where people simply do not have the opportunities that exist in other urban parts of Accra or other urban parts of Ghana. We invite you to have this conversation with us. We invite you to get to know a lot more about the people that we serve. And we think this will be mutually beneficial and help you meet your corporate social responsibility goals by 2028. Thank you. I'll stop here and turn it over to Charles.
Wow, nice one. Thank you so much, Orwell. Very, very practical and interesting way you connected the social responsibility goals of MTN and then the Accra Youth for Change objectives. Amazing. I love that. I wanted to ask whether you actually spoke from the top of your head, and I said this guy has been doing this thing for too long. So, wow, that was impressive. So yes, so yeah, I don't know if we could take 1 or 2 questions before we end. Is there any burning question? Maybe one burning question. But I had one question. Maybe I should ask one. Okay, Francis is there. Francis, please go ahead. Then I'll ask my question too.
Mine is not a question, but it's a question a colleague of mine asked. He wrote it on the chat. He said, are there any projects in Ghana that CSOs can do? I just wanted to share my contribute and give us more answer. I think they are big experts there, then they will conclude. The answer, if you still on the call, the answer is yes. There are a lot of projects CSOs can do. There's one doing health advocacy, and they were getting their funding, I think, from the UK. But it got to a time that their financier told them that their financing is reducing, so they should find a sustainable way of sustaining themselves financially. So they gave them money to establish a clinic, while they will be teaching people, then getting money to support the health education they were doing. As I speak, the clinic has migrated to hospitals that they are teaching people, getting money to support the NGO work. So whatever he is doing, if you look at the do research and find projects that align with whatever advocacy, whether it's in the health, if it's in the environment and climate change, do agricultural projects, maybe farm input or rendering services to farmers or something, or even going into agricultural itself, like agroforestry, planting coconut. Then the profit from the coconut we use it to finance the NGO work, if you're doing maybe environmental education or climate change education. So whatever sector you are in now, the dollars are not coming from outside the game. So I just want to encourage all my colleagues, CSOs, directors, and CSOs and managers that we should be looking at the project that surrounds whatever we are doing, then do something, get the money to finance whatever we are doing. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Francis. It was a bit tough hearing you, but I got the gist of some of the things you're saying. Very useful. And I noticed you said that isn't the pitch very long? Yes, usually, when you get a time to refine it, then you can shorten it and make it very sweet. But I was quite impressed that he spoke from on top of his head. But I want to ask one question, and please, treat this as your final response and also your final tip to us. So in all these things, what is the role of the leadership of our organizations? There are many executive directors here, and the role of our boards in preparing our minds for this change. Because I'm seeing that the blockage towards testing and exploring, like you said, doing some of these things, is actually in our minds. Because we paralyze ourselves even before we start to do something new. We tell ourselves it will not work. So from your conversations, how do we get the mind to shift? That, I think, is the biggest challenge.
Thank you, Charles. One of the books I like a lot is Who Moved My Cheese? It's by Spencer Johnson. And he talks about a group of mice and I think cats now, or rats, that were all chasing cheese in a particular maze. Then suddenly they woke up. No, there was a cheese in one place, and then they used to always go and eat there. Then they woke up, and then there was no cheese again. And then the intelligent cats and Abirath, and they just spent time mourning the loss of the cheese. They spent time figuring out what happened, who moved the cheese from here. Meanwhile, the mice that technically were not very as advanced, as educated as the rat, they found out that, hey, the cheese has moved. Okay, we need to go and find new cheese. And they quickly leapt up and started running after the new cheese, trying to get it. While the ones that were sophisticated, while the ones that were, oh, this is wrong, this is not correct, this is not how things should be done, they kept on trying to analyze why the cheese has left. And then they eventually had to go and start looking for new cheese long after the mice had already gotten the cheese. And the book is about change management. And what they just say is, you need to smell the cheese so you know when it's getting old and when it's going to rot away, basically. And what I want to say is things have definitely changed. So if I'm speaking to an executive director or a board member now, I'm saying, I provided you with data now that you can verify about how things have really declined. This is not a little steep like we saw during COVID. This is a fork in the road, if I use Elon Musk's terms. You either go this way or you go that way. There's no either of those. And times really, the data proves it. The events that are going on, the disruptions in our sector proves it. I mean, I don't need to tell you about how many Ghanaian CSOs have shut down, how many people have lost their jobs as a result of this. It is, if it was not this real, if it was not this evident, then things would not have gone south the way they have gone now. So what you need to be leading your organization in right now is leading them towards is a new era where you know that this is not business as usual, where you have to open up your mindset and be willing to try new things. Your cheese has moved, the cheese is funding. You need to get on with it. You need to make sure that you are exploring how to ensure that the organization doesn't end up in this space in the next 10, 20 years. And these measures, that's why I said, I mean, I shared about 4 different models here. If you check, if you research, if you do more analysis, you find out that there are tons. I mean, there's a very great option that WACSI has done on, it's called the Guidebooks on Alternative Funding Models. I studied it recently. I took the course. There are like more than 10 different alternative models you can look at. So there are a lot of options. So if you're not very comfortable with maybe corporate partnerships, maybe consider diving more into individual giving and local philanthropy, or exploring a lot more about what social enterprise models has to offer. The thing is, you need to have a mix of these measures so that you don't end up in the spot where you're in now. And times have changed. Recall that we're less than 4 years, just about 4 years to the Sustainable Development Goals. And the upheaval that has happened now in the last 8 months has actually threatened to wipe away all of the progress we've made over the last, almost 15 years, over the last 10 plus years in getting to this point. If you want to be able to deliver for your people, if you are really concerned about the mission and you want to be able to ensure that you deliver in respect of the mission, then you have to do what I've been trying to say severally in this call from the beginning. You need to focus on the problem and not the solution that has served you, not the funding solution that has served you till now, not how you think things should work. This is the time for you to revamp what you've done. And it's not going to be easy. It's not a quick fix. But if you get in right now, and put these building blocks for your corporate partnerships, for your social enterprise models, for your local philanthropy, for your endowments, it will begin to grow. You'll begin to grow with it, and eventually they will form very strong foundations upon which your work can be built. Remember that the old model, it involved us oftentimes bending to donors' whims, donors' caprices, bending to fit into the donors' priorities. That was oftentimes contradictory to what the local people needed in your communities. Now, this is a fresh start for you. All of these models that I shared, there are things that shift the power back to you focusing on your community's needs, back to you doing the work that you really want to do and making the difference you want to make. I would encourage you to get started, because this is a big change and it's not going anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Orwell. Fantastic way to end this conversation. So sorry, Sarah, we can't take your question. I mean, but you can post it in the chat and we try to get back to you. But thank you so much, everyone on this call who participated. Thank you, Orwell, for making time to share with us your insights, which were really, really important, right? So thank you, Orwell, and thank you for making time. Thank you, colleagues. So I pray that we all have a lovely afternoon and the rest of the week. Bye to everyone. Thank you.